Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing signs your ex wants to come back. I provide audio coaching to help people try and get their ex back or get a new girlfriend or boyfriend. Check out my website for more details. www.dateme.tips. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast. And today we are discussing signs your ex wants to come back. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you will be looking for signs that your ex wants to come back into your life. In today's podcast, I'll be discussing 3 signs to look out for, which suggest that your ex might want to come back. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is unnecessary contact. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, I suggest that by and large, you should never contact your ex again unless they contact you first. There are some caveats to that rule, but in general, that is a good position for you to begin with. So if you've been dumped and you're not going to reach out until if and when your ex reaches out to you, this leaves you in a position where you're focusing on your life, or at least that's what you should be doing. You shouldn't just be sitting around in your room with your head in your hands. You need to be living your life to the full, improving every day, experiencing everything you can, and making new connections. But that is the type of thing that I will discuss in a different podcast. So please subscribe to my YouTube channel, ring the bell for notifications, and check out all of the content and hundreds of podcasts that I have uploaded. But getting back to today's podcast, point number 1, unnecessary contact being a sign that your ex wants to come back. So like I was saying, if you've been dumped, I'm going to suggest that you don't reach out to your ex until if and when they reach out to you. So during that time, like I've just referred to, I would suggest that you live your life to the full. But if and when you receive that contact, you're going to be feeling pretty excited when you finally get that message from your ex. But I would say most dumpees will get contact from their ex if they live their life in the right way. If they're behaving in a way which isn't pushing their ex further away, there is every chance that you are going to receive that contact. But the problem that a dumpee might find at this time is the dumpee might be trying to decipher, what does this contact actually mean? And I like to say you need to look at the context. Is the contact you've received necessary, or is it unnecessary? If you're a dumpee and you're looking for a sign that your ex might want to come back, you first want to be looking for contact which is unnecessary. If you receive contact from your ex which is for an obvious reason, maybe perhaps they're asking you if you have their mail, if you have any letters, if you have some bills that you should be passing on to them because they need it to carry on living their life, that's an obvious situation. If you get contact from your ex and your dumper says, hey, I'm just wondering, have you got that post? Have you got that mail that I was waiting for? It was a really important invoice or a bill or whatever it may be, something regarding finances, something regarding banking. You know what I'm saying here? That is an example of something which is necessary. They need this mail, they need this letter, they need something which has been delivered to your house which actually belongs to them. That is necessary contact. What you are looking for as an initial sign that your ex might want to come back is unnecessary contact. Unnecessary contact could be something such as your ex reaching out to you and saying, hey, have you heard that your favourite band is coming to town next month? Now you might be thinking, well, they're just letting me know my favourite band is coming to town. What's the big deal about that? Well, I would say it's a huge deal, because somebody who ends a relationship has got no reason to be reaching out to you and informing you about your band is coming to town. Just because you might think, well, of course they're going to let me know. No, they're not going to let you know necessarily. Yes, when you were in a loving relationship, of course, you are going to be helping each other out, letting each other know information, but once your relationship ended, they no longer have that responsibility. They don't feel that responsibility to let you know of every single thing which you might be interested in. That is something which dumpees often forget. Sometimes they brush past contact from their ex thinking, well, yeah, it doesn't really mean anything. They've just reached out to me and let me know this. If it's unnecessary, it is worthy of your attention, because a dumper doesn't have to reach out to you. And most dumpers who aren't interested in regaining at least some communication are not going to do that. A dumper who wants to move forward with their life is not going to be bothered about letting their dumpee know that their favourite band is going to be in town next month. It's just not something that they're going to be focusing on. Not only that, it's not just about them thinking, well, I'm not going to let them know for some cruel reason. They're not going to let you know because they are focusing on their life if they want to move forward, and they probably don't want to give you what they would deem as false hope. So if you do receive contact, which is unnecessary, if you receive contact where your ex says to you, hey, I was just wondering, have I left my socks at your house? And you haven't heard from your ex in 4 months, and you're thinking, well, they've just asked me if their socks are at my house. We haven't spoken in 4 months. Why on earth are they now wondering if their socks are at my house? That's unnecessary contact. They don't need the socks they've left at your house. Unless they're made of gold, why would they need those socks? Why would they need them after 4 months? They wouldn't. It's unnecessary contact, and it is a sign that your ex might want to come back because they want to engage with you. They're thinking about you, and if they're thinking about you, that is one step away from missing you. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast about signs your ex wants to come back. And point number 2 is engaged communication. Now, if we're to think that your ex has reached out to you, we now need to see how engaged are they within the communication. Now, you might receive some contact which, as I've just said, is quite obvious whether it is necessary or unnecessary. But sometimes you might receive contact and you can't really tell. You're not really sure whether they really needed to send this or not. So another great way of knowing if and when your ex is starting to think about you more as a potential sign that they want to come back is if they are willing to engage in the communication. If your ex-dumper reaches out to you and asks you a question, you respond answering that question and you tag on your own further question, which is something I genuinely and generally suggest that you always do to try and grow the conversation. If you then don't get a response, what does this say? Well, unfortunately, it shows that your ex-dumper was not engaged. They were not engaged in the communication at this point. Now, of course, they may have been busy, but if they don't respond to you in the coming days or weeks and it just goes cold turkey, that would suggest they were not engaged, they were not focusing, they were not overly interested in your communication. If instead they do seem interested, they're asking you further questions, maybe they're a bit tentative at first, but as soon as you open them up correctly, they want to engage, they want to speak more via message, maybe via call, whatever it may be, you will be able to see fairly quickly if they are more interested than they should be. Most dumpers who end relationships are not going to be interested or focused in having long communication sessions, long conversations with their dumpee for the reasons that I've already mentioned. They don't want to lead you on, they don't want to give you false hope, and probably more importantly, they're focused on their own life, they're focused on their own journey, they just don't have the time. So, if you are confused about all of this, if you don't understand whether it is necessary or unnecessary, whether you don't understand whether or not they are engaged in the communication, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service where me and you can speak one-on-one about your unique situation. I would always say that the communication stage is probably the most important part of trying to reconnect with your ex. Because if you implement my version of the no contact rule initially, if you hear from your ex via a message, potentially, this is the moment where you really need to be pushing forward. Yes, it's great that your ex has reached out to you. Yes, it's great that no contact has worked for you. But what we now need to do is push forward, because you can't have a relationship on the phone. Getting your ex back is not achieved at this moment. The communication stage can be choppy waters, and that is why many people want to speak with me about this very instance. Maybe you're at this stage, maybe you just want to prepare, because I always like to say, if you fail to prepare, then you should prepare to fail. If you want to speak to me about this or any other topic regarding relationships, dating, breakup, self-improvement, maybe it's general life coaching, then go to my website www.dateme.tips for more details of how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. So now let's get into point number 3 and the final point of today's podcast about signs your ex wants to come back. And point number 3 is the single honeymoon period is over. Now this isn't normally as obvious to tell if this is the case, but I would say by and large the single honeymoon period will last anywhere between 6 to 12 months. Now what is this? This is a period of time where when somebody first becomes single, they are focusing on their life. They're living their life to the full. They're making sure that they do everything that they wanted to that perhaps they couldn't within the relationship. During this time, it is very difficult to get an ex back because they are focused on experiencing single life to the max. Now, like I said earlier, you might receive contact from your ex after 4 months. You might receive contact from your ex after 4 days. It doesn't mean you can't receive contact from your ex until it's been 6 months to 12 months. But what I would say is that most dumpers want to go through the single honeymoon period before they are open to reconnecting, and generally speaking, that is the length of time that it would be. Sometimes it's much sooner. Sometimes a dumper doesn't even seem to be progressing on such experiences. But I would say, on the average, if you want to know the average situation, I would say that your ex-dumper is most likely to reach out to you around the 6-month mark. It could be a little sooner, it could be a little later. That is the average. It doesn't mean you can't hear from your ex after 2 days. It doesn't mean you can't hear from your ex for the first time again after 2 years. This is the average I'm talking about. The average is, I believe, around 6 months. And therefore, if you know that you've been single for 6 to 12 months, I would say there is a greater opportunity for your ex, the dumper, to be thinking about you in an improved light. They've ended the relationship, so things were not brilliant or perfect at the time of a breakup. They decided they wanted to go on their own path, their own journey, and this sadly did not involve you, the dumpee. It doesn't mean you can't be in their life further on. Of course, there's no guarantee either way. There is no 100% guaranteed way to get your ex back. Nothing works 100% of the time, and nothing fails 100% of the time. But I would say that if you're looking out for clues that the single honeymoon period is over, this can be a sign that your ex wants to come back. So initially, that is focusing on the time frame. Are you in that 6 to 12 months? That, I would say, is a bit of a golden period for trying to get your ex back. Now, beyond 12 months, it's still possible, but unfortunately, from my research, your chances of success do start to drop after a year. By and large, that is due to the fact that every single anniversary has taken place. There are less triggers to pull your ex in, certainly not with the same power of when they happen for the first time, especially regarding dates. There could be other triggers, of course, as your ex goes throughout their life that maybe they haven't experienced yet beyond a year. But I would say when you go past a year, unfortunately, your chances reduce. They're not extinguished, but they are less. So, if you're 6 to 12 months in, this is an initial clue that your ex, the dumper, could be coming out of the single honeymoon period, which is a good sign. But you need more than that. You need more than just a time frame to count as an actual sign that your ex might want to come back. And that is where social media can come in. Now, this is something which is very, very delicate to talk about, because I do not suggest that you check your ex's social media. It's not going to help you. At best, it's going to confuse you, and at worst, it's probably going to break your heart all over again. So what do I actually mean? Well, I would say this is a scenario where maybe you're not looking for information, but perhaps it just comes across to you. That is why I said it's delicate. I do not want you searching this out. Don't look at it yourself. Don't ask your friends. This is something which has just almost got to happen upon you. But if for whatever reason you do find an update about your ex, probably via social media, maybe you see it inadvertently, maybe your friend lets you know something inadvertently, and I don't want you asking, this has to just be inadvertently, you might be able to tell if the single honeymoon period seems to be over. This might be between 6 and 12 months. This might be 12 months and beyond. This might be sooner than 6 months. But if you find out that your ex, the dumper, has been posting online information or something that suggests that they are no longer living their life in the way that perhaps they were previously, then this could sometimes suggest that their life is starting to become a more stabilised situation. They're no longer going to a different party every week. They're no longer trying all of these new experiences that they're always posting about. Maybe they went travelling and you find out that they've just come back from travelling. Again, another example of where the single honeymoon period could be over. You find out initially that your ex has gone travelling for a year, then you find out they've come back. There is an example. It's probably over. They're now back to reality. They're back to a situation where they have to face up to their past, look themselves in the mirror, and really think about where they are in their life right now, and if they are happy being single, or whether they might start to regret the breakup. So, point number 3, is the single honeymoon period over? 6 to 12 months is probably going to be over, but you want to find those other signs. Don't go searching for them though, but if you hear about it, if you find out that your ex isn't living such an extravagant life, they're not seemingly doing as much as they once were, that is a telltale sign that the single honeymoon period is over, their life is starting to settle down, and this can sometimes be an opportunity for them to look in the mirror and realise, look, I'm single, whatever has happened during this time, maybe I dated a bit, maybe I just spent time with my friends, but I'm still alone now. It's not all that great all the time. What was new has now become old. What was exciting has now become less appealing. I would say this can sometimes be a sign that your ex wants to come back. It might not be to you, it might not be as focused as point number 1 or point number 2, but this is the opportunity, this is the moment, this is where it could start to take place. But remember, all of this is for nothing unless you as a dumpee are putting in the work. You've got to be putting in the work and improving every single day, living your life to the full. And if you need support, consider going to my website, www.dateme.tips, for more information on my audio coaching service. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.